Well, hello. My name is John Cornicello, and I'm the guest today. So let me just tell you that coming up in the next couple of weeks, I've got David Julian, Lorraine Libdell, and Steve Brazel coming onto the show. Go to cornicello.com/conversations to find the schedule for that. And today, I'm going to have Holger Mischke take over. So, Holger, you ready to go?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
Doesn't get any better. Yeah, so hello. And actually, what was that? Yeah. Uh, I had this idea a couple of weeks ago when I talked to John that I thought he's arranging all these, and this have been since April 14th. This have been 59 conversations, I think, not including the open conversations where everybody just came and talked about whatever was on that day. Hi, Stephen. And I thought that he deserved to be on the other side of the table at some point. And I wanted to, because when I first came to these, that was on the day of the Epson Printing Academy thing with Greg and Jeff and Mac, I think.
Yeah, Mac Holberg was here.
Because I heard of these guys,
Andrew
and
Rodney
then
was
I'm
here too.
thinking, who is he? Because I had no idea who John was, and I had to look it up, and then it kind of made sense that he was doing the forums for Adobe and stuff. So he knew all these people, because that was the next question. Like, how can he invite all these people? I could write to these people, and they wouldn't care, I guess, more or less. But he knew all these people, all these interesting people to come over and talk to us. So yeah, that was the idea uh, to start this conversation. Then, John, with the 59 episodes so far, the
Yeah,
first
and
was just John doing properties of light, and he was just explaining. And then 9 days later, he had Dan Cooney on talking about what is it
I think it
actually?
was just a general lighting Q&A session too. I mean, it
Yeah.
started out just as a sort of a lighting class, and then I started inviting people on. And I should mention that that Epson Print Academy one was the highest attendance we've had for any of these.
With 90, I think, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So, uh, what was the idea? I mean, something changed obviously from the first thing that you were just talking about lighting, and then you invite somebody, make a conversation out of that on a platform like this, which is open, and it's not like a classroom situation. Somebody sitting here, and the rest is just listening. But here, people could chime in and then ask something. What was the idea, and
Well, I
why?
mean, it was COVID. I couldn't get out and see friends. I couldn't do anything with them. So I just started calling people and say, hey, come talk to me on the show. We'll invite some other people in and see where it goes. And as simple as that, there was no big planning for it or anything.
Hmm.
So um,
And what was the average? I mean, you said there's 90 was the highest with the Epson Print Academy
yeah,
guys.
often it's like 15 to 30 people,
And
which
then
is,
there's like, I found out, and I'm not even here all the time because I can't
mhm.
never can make it on Mondays, but there's usually like a gang of usual suspects, like the guys that are always there. Like, I'm scared that Mueller is not here. What is happening?
Yeah, that's surprising.
Yeah, absolutely. But these guys are there, and then you have a lot of people. Well, a lot of, but most people hang back in the background just to listen and do whatever they're doing.
Right. And we're also live streaming on Facebook. So there's people watching there. And then we get the replays on YouTube afterwards.
So you have looking at the statistics from Zoom and from YouTube and Facebook and that. Is this growing? Is this actually getting more?
That's hard to tell because until recently, the whole list of attendees was under one. It just kept adding on each week. But now that we're doing individual meetings, I'll be able to tell. So the past 3 weeks, we've been about 20 people
But
each one.
do you
So
actually do anything like marketing to make this grow, or you just
speaking
word of
of,
mouth? Yes, absolutely.
the marketing I do is I've been doing Facebook,
And
Instagram,
also,
and Twitter. So no real heavy duty. I'm not
no,
known
no,
for self promotion.
because already you're paying for the account on Zoom, and that's all you're paying, right?
Yes,
Because
right
you're
now,
not
yep.
getting anything back for this.
No, no, but I'm getting the fun of getting to talk to everyone. I mean, it's
That, of course.
especially while we're locked down. I mean, this is great for me. A lot of my heroes I've had on the show. Um,
Yeah, that's
so
true. So now this,
There's Newler. He showed up.
Oh,
so
when you
he,
say hero, I thought you were talking of.
I was hoping nobody would notice.
Oh, there he is. There he is. Hey, wait a minute. What is this? Bookends between Ian and Helga? What is this?
what do you mean?
Everyone sees a different screen, Michael. So right now for me, Jeff Shuey's in the middle square.
Somewhere,
I got,
yeah.
I got two bowling balls on both sides of me.
And
Because
Michael
of
here, who just
friendly
joined in,
race.
have been a real boon to the show. He joined also at the time of the Epson Print Academy and has really helped me along, introducing me to more people and really helped promoting things. So thank you, Michael.
Oh, thank you. I'm really glad I found you. Now, other people may have other thoughts, but I'm really thrilled that I was able to find this. And I mean, I keep calling it a place to do fireside chats
Exactly.
with people, with our peers. You know, that's fine by me. You know, to kibitz, to have fun, to enjoy. You know, and by the way, I'm sorry. The reason why I was late, I got first I pulled an all-nighter. That's number
Of
one.
course.
I pulled an all-nighter, and number two, I got a very interesting phone call from a mutual friend of ours, Seth Resnick, and I had to take it. So, but
Okay.
anyway,
Anyway, let's hand it back to
I wouldn't
Holger.
have, I would not have missed this for the world.
Thank you.
So what is a little different from this presentation as to the others, because usually we had, like in my case, he handed it over to me. I showed my images. I said what I wanted to say, and that was it pretty much. But now I think we're talking a little bit about the life of the man who is John, and after that he's going to show some of his images. And if then you still want to ask him something about his life, if you haven't heard enough, then we can still do that. So we're starting at the beginning, of course. He's born in Brooklyn. I didn't know that.
Yep.
In 57, which makes him 63 today. And the parents didn't think he should be a New Yorker. That's why they moved to New Jersey when he was like 3 or 4 months old. And now he's on the other side of the continent. So John, where is home now? And what is home?
Home is Seattle, Washington now, and I've been here since 1993. When I lived in New York or New Jersey, I never thought I'd be more than 20 minutes outside of Manhattan. I mean, that was the center of the universe back then. Then I came out to Seattle to work with Thunder Lizard Productions, and they said, why don't you come move to Seattle? So I flew home, packed my car, and drove back. And it's pretty much that simple, and haven't looked back since. I mean, I went back to New York once and took the train in, and it's like, I used to do this every day. It was crazy.
But it wasn't a big thing I mean, it is a big thing. You move across the continent, but to leave something you call home, that was never a problem for you?
It was time. There was nothing going on for me there. You know, I had a studio in New York for a while, but then I left that and went back to New Jersey, worked in an ad agency, started a typesetting shop with some friends, but, you know, still wanted to get back into photography. So the Thunder Lizard started doing these conferences for PageMaker and Photoshop. And I would fly out to the cities where the conferences were, help set up the AV stuff, hire the speakers, get everything going. And then, like I said, they said, why don't you just move to Seattle and come work with us? So I did.
When you look at the bio, because John sent me a bio before this, which it looked like he had just written it like 5 minutes before that. And which you did, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah. And which was interesting was that at the beginning of the timeline, he pretty much, it wasn't years, it was cameras. So it was like something like the first 35 millimeter camera in 1972, Hanimex Practica, which was stolen from the high school darkroom. And December 1974, you got a Canon FTBN with a 28, 50, and 135 millimeters lenses. Are you a gearhead?
Am I a gearhead? In some ways. I think most of us have gear acquisition syndrome or gas. Um, I mean, I've stuck with Canon though over the years. I'm not one of these that keep switching between, oh, I got to go to Canon. Oh, I need Sony now. Oh, now it's time for Nikon. Oh, now I'm back to Canon. I've been with Canon since the beginning. So um, I don't know if that means anything.
Wait, the
But
beginning of what?
Since 74.
The
So
war?
I had
Or
FD
what?
lenses, then to EOS, and then to mirrorless. So I've been through 3 or 4 lens mount changes.
Must have been a pretty damn traumatic experience going from New Jersey out to Seattle by car.
Yeah, I packed my car. I rented a U-Haul, filled it up with some stuff, and drove. I mean, I didn't know what I
This
was
is-
doing.
This is back in what, 93?
93, yep. September
And-
of 93.
And the witness protection program couldn't just rent a truck for you and bring you out there?
Nope.
Oh,
I had to hide from them too.
So how old were you then, John?
Good question.
physically
93.
or mentally?
Go to 57 to 93, whatever that math is.
Okay,
I don't have
okay,
my calculator here.
got it.
Must have been around 38 or so.
Okay, all right.
But you also wrote that the creativity with cameras that started way before that. That he was quite creative with cameras like photography and 8mm filmmaking. He was taking photos of model cars he built
Yeah, let's see.
and add some props like cotton to make it look like smoke or something. And that was around what, 80, 68, 70?
I would guess so. Here, I'm going to share my screen here. I don't know if you could see this. This I found in an album I got from my mom who passed away a couple of years ago. And it says
Fabulous.
John's first picture taking up there from May 1965, June 67. So I was very, very creative back then with blurring and
Oh, yeah.
odd exposures.
The blur is absolutely intentional, yes.
Where
Yeah.
is this?
You could see this one looks like a Jeep Willys, but it's really a portrait of this person up here on the.
Oh,
I just noticed that now. It looks like there's a person up there. Me,
those are great.
but then I'd build model cars, and let's see, model cars. And then I'd try to photograph them, and I think I just had a Kodak Duoflex, and I probably forgot to put on the close-up lens for it or something. But anyway, there was my start in still life photography.
That's fabulous.
Jim's asking how many pictures I took along the way from my trip out here. I really didn't take a lot of them. The path I chose was 90. So as I used to say to people, from New Jersey through Minneapolis or so was pretty much the same. Then I crossed into North Dakota and the world changed. Once I hit the Badlands and then into Montana, and then it started getting back to normal again as I finally reached Seattle.
John, go back to the original group of pictures.
Yeah.
In the lower right-hand corner, there's a bunch of guys at a lake. What lake is that?
I would have to guess that's in Warrenenko Park in New Jersey.
Okay.
But I don't know, but it sort of looks like a beach at the edge. That's June 1967. I was 10 years old. I don't remember.
Okay.
But there wasn't at that time when you were fiddling with these model cars and that,
Mhm.
photography wasn't like your major creative outlet then, right? You were
No, I
playing
was,
music.
like you said, it
watching-
was this from when I was from 7 to 10 years old.
What changed it after 10?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of people say that, they got hooked on photography in high school when they saw the first picture coming up in the developing tray. But I don't know, that wasn't really it for me because that's what I expected to happen. I went to an all boy, other ones people say they did it to meet the girls, but I went to an all boys high school. It's just a friend of mine worked in the camera department of a
Don't go there. Don't go there.
friend of mine worked in the camera department of a department store and said, why don't you go buy this camera? That was the Hanimex Pertiga. I think it was like $60. Okay, and I started playing with that, and then I got hooked. Did all the yearbook and newspaper stuff like that, and then went to college and went to liberal arts college because I thought I was going to go into music, and they had a modular Moog synthesizer there, so that's why I picked that school. Ended up having a really great photography professor there, Ed Scully. He was the editor of Camera 35, and him and his wife Julia worked on modern photography. Um, and he was just a drill instructor type of instructor, and just put a lot of knowledge into my head. And from there, just kept going.
What college was that?
It was Ramapo College of New Jersey. It was a state college.
Yep.
So
Mueller knows. Mueller's another New Jersey person.
Yeah.
These photographs you're showing, John, are to me such a reminder of how sort of common photography has changed from, everyone knows what I'm talking about, but these are so precious and wonderful, and it's just, just doesn't happen this way anymore. It's great to see these.
Yeah,
It
you got
is
the-
Do
wonderful.
you know how many photographers came out of New Jersey?
Oops.
Um,
That was a
Robert
picture of
Barber,
that dog.
Yeah.
Walter Yost.
Uh-huh. You muted yourself, Michael.
You know how many photographers came out of New Jersey?
That's perfect.
Don, will you leave it alone,
Oh,
please?
sorry about that.
Um,
Anyway, growing up, this house on the corner was white and it had columns in front, and everyone used to always talk about the White House. And I thought I lived across the street from the White House when I was 3 years old.
Oh my gosh.
Don, was there a point in time where in your photography you said to yourself, gee, I want to do this in photography specifically?
Well, I started out as still life in a catalog studio using 11 by 14 cameras. And I never thought I was really going to get into much people photography. Thought it was going to be a product photography that didn't talk back, and you can light them with a bunch of hot lights and they didn't get uncomfortable and the like. I'll go find, whoops, let me find, go back here. Stuff I was doing in the 80s. So here I'll just, let me let Doug in. This was the assistant photographers group at ASMP that we started around 1981, and we had a Gophers softball team. Still in contact with some of the folks in here, Paul Gelsabello, Joe Pobereskin, Mary McCulley, a few others in here that I
Where's
still
Joe?
see. Joe Pobereskin up here on
Yeah.
the end. He's in Chicago now.
No, I know Joe.
Oh, okay.
Where are you in that, John?
Down here in the lower corner here
All right.
with the silly grin. Let's see. Working in the studio with the 4x5. Always had the trusty Minolta 3 light meter in hand. Let's make that smaller. 8x10. As I said, I used to think of 11 by 14 was large format, 8 by 10 was medium format, 4 by 5 was small format.
Oh,
And that's what I was working on in that picture there. Remember ticker tapes and telephones and push buttons?
Oh, yeah.
Showing our age. These are all 8 by 10. Just recently ran across some of these old chromes.
Now, what, you were doing this for a catalog or doing it for advertising?
There was a mixture, and some of these were just self-promotion items too. This one was a self-promotion that they bought to use for their calendar. Then I did every once in a while play in the studio with some people. I had friends come over. So these are some of my early people photography. Had no idea what I was doing, but see, most of these were the silver umbrella overhead. Sometimes I had a Larson 4x4 softbox. And then I go out and shoot some shows. This is Queen. Actually, this is in the 70s. Queen at the Beacon Theater. And then I was into music too at the time. So as I said, I originally went to school thinking I was going to go into music, but that never happened. And this is what the studio looks like now in New York. I was back to visit a few years ago. It's still in operation. And back to the softball team.
So were you one of those guys who could never put a camera down? Was it like you were always off to shoot the next thing, looking for something to shoot?
Pretty much, yes. So, it was like the Jay Maisel thing, always have a camera with you. If you don't have a camera with you, you're just stuck taking neurochromes.
Yeah, Mueller does neurochromes in pencil.
Oh,
So,
Gotcha, Shiwi, didn't I?
this phone
other
doesn't
other
stop
questions
ringing.
about those early days?
When did you break from shooting? I mean, you started shooting your friends and stuff. Did you break from the still lifes and start as part of your business or job shooting people, as opposed to just shooting people?
Yeah,
for
that came much later because, like I said, at the studio was in the early '80s. In the mid '80s, I gave that up and went back to New Jersey and worked for an advertising agency, and did some typesetting because computers were coming out then, and desktop publishing. And I was doing, actually, before I left New York, I was starting to do databases for just client management, and the people who used to hire me as an assistant on set started hiring me to help them set up their computers. And I got more into computers for a while and databases. Um, and that seemed like computers was the way to go, plastics. Um, so from there, I was out of photography for a while because when I moved to Seattle, I worked for Thunder Lizard and then I worked for Adobe for 20 years and I moonlighted in photography. And that's when I started doing headshots and portraits. There wasn't any real still life. It wasn't as a job in the beginning. Then I retired from Adobe around 2014. And that's when I went full time back into photography as my living. And that was almost all headshots.
But there was a long time that you didn't put yourself under the pressure to have to live from photographing, because you did the computer stuff and all that.
Right.
You were around, and it was doing work for photographers and everything, but you didn't really have a problem to say like, well, I'm just going to photograph for my own sake, just for fun. And
No,
not
it's
have
great to
to live.
photograph for fun.
Oh yeah, I get, like I'm saying, you never put yourself under the pressure to just have to be doing that for money, and then
No, I've been a happy-go-lucky person. I just whatever I have to do, I do. You know, it, yeah, I don't
I
get
mean,
all
the other
tied up in
things you did,
pressure.
the other things you did with the typesetting and with the computer work, and that was something you enjoyed as well, right?
Yes, at the time, I don't think I'd want to go back and do databases anymore.
Nah.
I'm not sure about typesetting,
So
but
you're,
but then Photoshop came out, and for a while I just had point and shoot cameras for years. Then Photoshop came out, and the first time I used Photoshop, I had no idea what to do with it because I didn't have any scans. It was almost like Apple Paint. I can draw boxes and fill in patterns and colors and the like. Um, and then finally, digital cameras started coming around, and I remember I got a couple of early Olympus cameras and started. Okay, now I can see what Photoshop has to offer, and that was around Photoshop 3 um, time era, and then the Canon EOS 30D, or is it D30, and the D60 came out, and those were when I really jumped into digital, and haven't looked back since.
Oh yeah, the change to digital, that was the D30 in just when it came out, right?
Yeah, that was around 2000 or 2001. 3 megapixel. I still have photos from there that I've blown up to like 16 by 20 or larger that look great. I really like that camera.
But how was that change from 35 millimeter and a large format in that? And
Well,
then you
those
go
were I
to,
was shooting chromes on most of those. So digital to me, I didn't think was much of a big difference. I just wanted to protect the highlights, build up, get some light into the shadows, um, just get the exposure right in camera as much as possible. So I mean, the people I think that really struggled with it were film uh, people who shot negatives, color neg, black and white neg, because it was a different world. I think coming into digital is you have more leeway. I think with the negative films.
Mm.
What got you into shooting people more, John?
I don't know what it was. I mean, I just decided that I was very introverted as a kid, and I started to break out of that. I got involved in the art scene in Seattle quite a bit and started doing portraits at parties and things like that, and just kept growing more and more. Built up a reputation for shooting people, and here's where we are.
But why that you did product photography and still life and stuff, and now is people is really the passion.
Yes, definitely. That was another thing with the COVID thing. I couldn't photograph people for months. That started to get to me, and that got me to start this thing we call the Mask Project. So I started having people bring their masks, and we do the social distancing. I was masked, they were masked. Got to play in the studio. So here's some of those. Sort of a Keith Richards look, huh?
John, what did you do with these images?
They're just online on my website, on Facebook, and given to the people that came over to be in them.
That's
You use them for any
amazing.
marketing?
No,
Really?
nope. I'm not a marketing person. That's why I need you around to help push me around on do things. Here I can go into
Then-
more
Then you
people.
need some psychiatric help.
So I'm just going to kind of run through things here as we're talking. Keep asking questions. These are just almost all of
I mean,
these things are done in my home studio. And
there's one thing I don't really understand is you saying, because we talked about this before, you were saying you're an introvert, and I get that because I'm like that too, but that's why I don't photograph people. And you do this, that you get people together. Like, how does that work? That you're an introvert, but I feel you're so outgoing. I don't get this two together.
because I don't know if there really is introvert, extrovert. It's just phases of that you feel some days and other days. You know, maybe I was an extrovert all along, but I just didn't want to admit it. I don't know. These coming up here are kind of interesting because these are all done in my living room with an 8-foot ceiling on a 9-foot wide seamless for theater groups. So
Amazing.
I don't know if anybody is watching the chat, but Jim is writing, one thing that is implicit in all of this is how many people respect John. When I was first getting to know camera people in Seattle, everyone knew John, and everyone assumed I knew John. We'd been around each other, but never introduced. When people discovered I didn't know John, they would be amazed.
So you
I
have-
thanks.
can add that I've seen John work a little bit, and he has a terrific knack at engaging with people by catching them off guard and throwing in a little bit of humor and getting them to just break loose and become natural and be themselves.
So for a while, I had a thing I called the chair series where I found this old chair at a garage sale and had people posing in that. You can see the chair in the background of this one.
Whoa,
I have bendy
Whoa.
friends.
my back fucking hurts.
Uh,
Wow.
she's from New Jersey too, but now in Vegas. And well, I don't know now with COVID and Cirque du Soleil stuff shutting down. I don't know what these people are doing, but it's amazing
Wow.
what you can do when you're 17.
Amazing.
Can she
Uh,
still do that?
I don't know. That was about 4 years ago.
So John, your lighting is always really superb.
Well, thanks.
Do you study your lighting or study lighting, or is this somewhat instinctual?
It's more instinctual. I mean, I light pretty simply. Usually just a big soft something. For years, the 60-inch soft lighter 2 was my go-to. Now my go-to is usually like a 2x3 softbox and maybe a 1x3 strip as my 2 lights. This is Brooke Shaden. Try to do something in sort of her style. I've had a number of photographers come over visit to be photographed in the chair. Peter Hurley, Andrew Scrivani,
Are you painting your own backgrounds or are you buying them?
No, most of these are just gray seamless that I've added texture to in Photoshop. Lee
Oh.
Varys, Ben Von Wong. It was my next series was the egg chair that I'm sitting in now.
And then coming back to the lighting you just talked about, that's all in the book, right?
Yeah, I've got a book called Anatomy of a Studio Portrait um, that talks about, I talk about what I think of when I'm setting up lights, like what the distance on the light means, what the size of the light means. Um, it's not telling you where to place the light, but why things happen. It's more the science. I want to give you an understanding of how light works so you can get yourself out of trouble. Um, too many books I've seen just so picture, here's where the lights were, go out and do it. So I didn't want to do it that way.
John, let me ask you something about
Yeah.
this picture. Have you ever looked at your images, especially this one, and say, I don't even know how long ago this was taken, but
This is about
Let's
4
say-
years ago at Adobe Max.
okay. And you own this image?
Yes.
Okay. So have you ever looked at an image and said to yourself, gee, what would I do to take this image to the next level? And I'm not talking about recreate it.
Hmm.
I'm talking about taking this file and doing something else to it to bring it to the next level.
Sure. Lately, I've been working with Topaz Impression, doing some artistic things to them, trying to figure out if I really enjoy that. Oh, I do enjoy doing it. So I think I have some in here coming up that will show that.
Look at Michael's screen.
Yes. The Eiffel Tower.
Are you teaching at all?
Uh, yes, actually, I was just asked to come back to Photo Center Northwest for their winter semester to do a basics of light, a studio lighting class. And I've done some online teaching. And for years, I assisted at Creative Live, sort of in the background, lighting sets for people that were teaching there. That's where I learned to be a mind reader.
Huh.
The fun things at Creative Live was, I'd have a teacher there and they're explaining something, but what if we tried? And I'd hand them what they were going to ask for before they ever asked for it. And that used to be the fun thing to do there, just to always anticipate and have everything ready beforehand.
Let me go back to that
The-
the guy with the mustache.
Yeah.
So you've been working with Topaz, which program?
Impression.
What about Studio 2?
Well, Impression is part of Studio 2. My
right.
my thing with all these plugins, I never used many of them, and they're overwhelming. There's so many choices in there that I just get tired looking through them.
Well, and
And
the other thing is, to a certain extent, Michael, John is a fucking photographer. He's not a, filter mania kind of goofy like you are.
Jeff.
you mean, and so you don't work in Photoshop or Lightroom?
I
I understand that, Jeff. Okay.
I used to tell people that, if I couldn't finish a photo in Lightroom, I failed as a photographer. It was like doing the darkroom work in Lightroom. I'd go into Photoshop if I needed to change a background or a heavy duty complexion retouch or something like that. But, I'd try to be able to do everything as much as possible in Lightroom. This is one of the few times I went outside and took a picture. Um, Almost 90% studio work. That's Mom on the 4th of July.
Oh,
Oh,
that's so sweet.
Always with the tissue in hand.
wow.
This is a grab shot down at the Palm Springs Photo Festival. He was just standing by a doorway. This is with my little point and shoot camera.
Beautiful.
That was last year, John?
That was 3 years ago.
Okay.
A friend of mine does this Groucho Show, and we did some photos with the chair. This was his senior picture. Andrew Scrivani is always fun to come into the studio. He always wants to play with something. Local band. And as I think Jim was saying in the chat, I'm very active in the local theater scene. So these be some promo pieces for Cafe Nordo, another daylight shot, promo piece for a Halloween show. And then I do a bunch of figure stuff. But go ahead, keep asking questions. I'll just kind of, if you see a picture you want to ask about, I'll stop.
Are these all professional models or people who are used to be in front of a camera?
A lot of them are people used to be in front of camera, local models, and a lot
So
of
what would
friends
you
too.
do?
A lot of my friends are in theater, so that helps.
Yeah. But what is, I mean, you must have some of these, but what is your approach on people who come and don't know how to pose and don't know how they just plain feel uncomfortable being in front of a camera, but they need that photograph for some reason?
You just
What do you do then?
joke around with them, try to make them feel comfortable, just do things to distract them. Just say stupid things, and, meaningless things. Um, just wear them down.
Threaten them.
What was that, Jeff?
Threaten them.
Threaten them. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Was it Jay Maisel? I remember someone once said, "How do you get your jobs?" And he said the last page of my portfolio is just a sign that says, "I know where your kids go to school."
Oh, no, you have a connection with these people, John.
Yeah, and this was at an event. I mean, this wasn't even in my studio. This was in the lobby of a show.
Beautiful.
And that's pretty recent. So there starts that over again.
And now lately you've posted some stuff on social media with the thing with the milk and
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah,
traffic
so
tracks and stuff.
yeah, I wanted to play with stopping motion with strobes because I keep seeing these arguments over high speed sync to stop motion, which it doesn't do, versus just a short flash duration. So let's see, these were some of these things I did. Here's my Georgia O'Keeffe.
Oh,
So that was reworked in impressions. And then I added food coloring to the milk.
Hmm. That's pretty cool.
So I was just experimenting with how high you had to hold the drops before they'd create the bit of a crown.
I'm curious, John, on the drops, were you using some sort of a optic release, or just
No,
trying to
that would have
get
been
lucky?
that would have been too easy. I just did a blog post about it where I talk about the luck involved. I mean, if I shot 150, 75 of them would not have the splash in it.
Yeah,
So it's
I'll look
really
at it.
eyedropper, squeeze, press trigger, squeeze, press trigger,
Yeah.
and work it out. Yeah, I should have built some sort of rig that would always put the dropper in the same place, but I was, I took 15 minutes to set this up.
You can get that from a scientific or a kid's a chemistry set where you fill the column with a liquid, and at the bottom is it's like a little.
Yeah, it's a little glass spigot that
Exactly, and it
as it rotates, it lets it drop out.
yeah.
That would have been too much work. As I said, I spent 15 minutes setting up and doing these. And then here's some things where adding textures, projecting. These are projecting images onto the models.
oh.
Now, are your ideas for these coming from the recesses and the corners of your mind, or do you also have models?
Some of them, or sometimes I'll see something online and say, "Oh, there's an idea let's take it in another direction." This is an interesting one. This is done with an LED light one that's spinning different colors. So one pop of the flash. The interesting thing on this was Matthew Jordan Smith and I both posted similar images to this on the same day. So I try to
Really?
think of the great minds think alike.
Yeah.
Again, just projections, strobe light projections, more of the. Then I started combining people with flowers.
Can you please go back to what's
This one?
going on here?
How this is done is she's looking off to the side, the flash fires, then she moves her head over to the side and turns back to look at herself during a 1 second exposure. And during that time is when the LED is flashing different colors.
Okay.
Same type of things, projecting. Our friend Lisa Carney and Tony Corbell. And then I started playing again with trying to time blowing bubbles and bursting them. Yeah, this COVID thing gave me a lot of time to play with crazy stuff.
Seems like maybe when you were starting, John, or when you were doing all your product
Hmm.
photos and even, oh, that's beautiful. And then even in these a lot, it seems like you really enjoy the technical aspect and experimentation.
I
Would that be
do.
correct?
I do for a while. I don't get too heavy duty into it. Um,
I imagine the lighting now is pretty much, you don't even think about it a lot. I mean, it must be a natural for you.
I hope it is. I hope it is.
And
You know,
maybe you enjoy that going a little step further to do something.
yeah, my lighting. Right now, I've moved into my little studio in the garage, which I think I probably have a photo of here. You know, I went from the big living room studio here. So that's what my studio looks like now.
Wow. Storage too.
Storage too. Well, I've started cleaning out some of the storage stuff since this photo was taken.
What
And
happens in the winter?
this is the winter. I've got a heater in there now, and I closed the garage door, but I haven't shot anything in about a month now, just because of the COVID recycling and coming strong again. So I don't have people coming in, but so now I'm cleaning it out a little more. I have a little more space in there, but
But you do most of your studio work now in this garage studio, is that right?
yes, yes. All those still lifes you just saw that were done up in my living room, because I only need a dining room table to do those on. Let's see.
Necessity is the mother of invention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Here's
And
some.
also photo equipment tends to multiply beyond the space in which you have to keep it.
That's a nice silhouette of that cordial glass.
Yeah, so let me show you some of those. And there's a question in the chat about assisting, and I'll get to that in a second. So these were some just multiple exposures, or zooming. It's actually long exposures, zooming the lens during the exposure. Um, that's a texture edit in Photoshop. You know, I started doing these thinking these would be great wall art for a high-end bar, restaurant, or something like that. Always playing with fire,
Jeff Sheewee.
going for the minimalist look. Seltzer water. Then I got into dropping dyes into water. The first time I did this, I got a 10-gallon fish tank out, and then realized after the first few drops were in there, this is going to be a real pain to clean out and redo. So I switched to doing them in a 12-ounce glass, and it worked just as well, maybe better. Someone brought over these gigantic flowers one day, and I just had to photograph it. It's a still life I recently did that I'm just sunlight coming through a window, not even using any lighting equipment on this one. And then I did my Carried Away series. This is about a week ago. Anyway, back to there. So David Robertson was asking me in the chat there if I've assisted some pro photographers. So back in the early 80s, after I started in the catalog studio, Let's stop the share for the moment. I did work with Dennis Gottlieb, doing food photography mostly, and Jeff Morgan, still life in New York, and a couple other people. Then when I came out here for Creative Live, I've worked with 30, 40 instructors. Um, I try to think of myself now, people ask me if I want to assist, and I don't want to assist a working photographer. I want to assist in teaching. I think of myself more as a teaching assistant because I can bounce things off the photographer I'm working with, and we can teach the audience. I'm not good on set. I have Parkinson's now, and this arm shakes a bit, so I'm not really steady setting things up and tripping over tripods and things like that. So yeah, I'm not the person you want on set anymore.
But it's what I like about all these things that I see here and what we talked about before is like your attitude. You're not caring too much about etiquette and whatever people think you have to do and have to be. You're just focusing on what you enjoy. There's these little things that you telling me when I asked you about your wife and when you got married, and you say like we both don't remember our wedding day.
Right. We know
And
it
like
was in
that means
September of some
everything.
year. And when our parents send us anniversary cards, we know that it must be the time of our anniversary. We know we met on March 25th and we celebrate that
But see,
day.
that's what I meant. It's like you're focusing because you with her. It doesn't really matter when that started or what, because that's statistics. Who gives a fuck
Yes.
about
Right.
that?
Right.
But the other thing, that's the thing with when I asked you about the Parkinson's, and you said, because I thought that would have had a major impact on your life. Of course it does, but you said, I'm not thinking about that too much. And I was like, that was mind blowing. I'm thinking, if I had anything
Mhm.
close to that, I would like concentrate it. I would take a while at least to get rid of that being constantly in my mind. And you just say, I try not to think about it.
Right. I mean,
That's
I
the
can't
person
do
you
anything
are.
about it.
I really admire that.
I take some pills for it. It controls the shake most of the time. My shake is, as I said, mostly on my left hand, sometimes on my left leg. I'm right-handed. I know many people with the disease that are much worse off than I am, that progress much quicker. I've probably had it for 14 years or so.
Mm.
And hopefully because it started out early, it's a very slow progression and may not get much worse. So I just count my blessings and go on with the day.
But
Take
I guess that your attitude also helps.
attitude.
This thing is not progressing any further, or not that fast at least. Because if people concentrate on their problems, they're going to make it worse. Because
Mhm.
they want to build them up in their mind, and you're just that kind of person that is going like, I want to enjoy what I'm doing, and I want to enjoy life, and I see that. I really admire your whole esprit, like let me call it
Well,
that.
thanks. Yeah, that's a
Hey,
good word for it.
John, I would have you on my sets any day or night. Absolutely. Because what knowledge you have acquired and the skill that you have in your mind uh, is far in excess of whatever issues you have
Mhm.
with uh, the your hypothalamus.
Until I kick the tripod.
All right, that's
It
okay.
happens.
Yeah,
And so you reset it. That's all.
I
No
know.
big deal.
Yeah.
It's not that easy sometimes. Jeff should know.
Yep. Although sometimes the kick tripod takes the best shot.
Thank you.
Oh, I have many shots outdoors, like at the Space Needle and the like long exposures where I'll tap the tripod or something intentionally, and
Oh,
those work out.
I must say, I greatly admire your enthusiasm for what you do, and your work is just incredible, and the breadth of it is just incredible.
Well, thanks.
Without
You know,
question.
I tell people I have the helper gene. I'm always trying to do something to help people, answer questions, teach, and things like that. Um, it's just what keeps me going.
It's
Yeah.
a trait from
interesting.
people from New Jersey.
John,
Yes.
did we know each other during the Photoshop conference? I vaguely remember you prior to Adobe, because I started,
Hmm.
speaking at the Photoshop conference, and got Greg to come, but that was, before Photoshop World.
Yeah, I
Scott
think I
Shelby's
left Thunder
full of it.
Lizard just before you got involved. Because I
Okay.
was in Thunder Lizard from 93 to 94, and then I joined Adobe in January of 95.
Yeah. Well, I guess Adobe is where you and I first met
Yes, through the
because you
forums.
had to moderate my posts
Yes, yes. I had to keep
often.
you and Chris Cox in line.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the first Photoshop conferences were Russell Brown, Bert Munroy, David Biedney. Those are the um,
Well, Bert's doing okay. He had his
the heart attack
knee
or something.
surgery and then heart attack,
Yes.
but we hope he's doing good.
Hmm.
And
Uh,
David
John-
Biedney, of course, is just totally fucking nuts.
Jeff is saying he's got some photos of you that might be fun to show, whatever that means.
Sure, let me make him a.
You ready to see this?
Yeah,
I've
Well, he
probably
has photos of everyone.
I've probably seen these.
I got a
here,
lot
but
of photos of people. Yeah.
they're probably in the Adobe office, huh?
Yes.
I think you can share now. Bruce Fraser was the kind of the crossover from Thunder Lizard into Adobe and into the new world.
Well, so the interesting thing is that I can't remember exactly why I was in Seattle. It may have been for um, uh, a wine tasting with Greg. I'm not 100% sure, but I had gone to visit Adobe in San Jose a number of times,
Hmm.
and then decided, well, they opened up, they bought
Aldous.
Macromedia, Aldous, and then opened up an office in San Francisco. So I thought it'd be fun to go meet John. And this was the Adobe office. I guess it still is
Yes.
In Seattle.
It's about
And
a half mile from my house.
yeah, and there's John down there in the no, I'm kidding. I don't know where
Yeah.
John is. But here's going in the front door, and then John meeting me in
Oh,
his
God. Oh, God.
at Adobe, and of course the girls laughing. And then John pointing out his picture in the group shot. And all the awards, well, not all the awards, but then John's office. And was this where you actually did the control of the moderate the forums?
Yes, I mean, I moved offices a few times there. They'd always move our floors around. They never let us stay one place too long. But yes, that was probably what I was doing here is forum stuff.
And I can't remember why you showed me this, but something about being in popular photography.
That was my first cover photo for a magazine.
Okay. That's fun. And then the obligatory taking pictures of photographers taking pictures. The one thing that Adobe has in their offices are a lot of kind of goofy things because engineers need stress reduction. And so apparently putting up a punching bag was useful because you would rather them punch a bag than each other,
Well,
which
this
has been
was-
known to happen.
Yeah, this punching bag was actually in between the tech support and the customer service departments.
So, John, let me hit it. And there's John throwing an elbow, I think. And this was this tech support? Some of the girls?
Yes, Tina Carter in the purple.
Yeah.
Who may still be there. Devin. Yeah, and Kirsten Harris, who last I
Kirsten,
heard Kirsten was running the Adobe stock photo thing now.
And of course, the other thing that engineers seem to like are toys, because they don't play well with others, so they play with their own stuff.
Exactly.
This, I can't remember who this is.
Jody Hamilton.
Okay.
Wow.
I just saw her name tag and
And John with his big balls.
I I don't think I've seen that one before.
No. And then whiteboards at corporations and of course Adobe, these are very important information. What is the most dangerous thing you've done? I-5 in LA.
Had kids.
Swimmed with
Swimmed.
sharks. I like that. You mean swam? Colonoscopy bag draining. Yeah. Crab fishing in Russia. Met President Bush. I don't think you wrote any of these, did you, John?
No.
Had kids. Criticized my SO's artwork. Well, that's just stupid. And then John took me out to lunch down in the Fremont district, was
Yep,
it?
Fremont.
Yeah. And showing these signs where, you know, Atlantis is 663 fathoms down. And then Timbuktu is 10,000 miles. I don't know what I put that in there for. Oh, and the Lenin sculpture made news recently because of the Republicans wanting to indicate that, you know, Seattle
Oh,
was
yeah.
a center of communism.
Communism.
So then here's John in front of the Lenin sculpture.
Gee.
And then explain this under the bridge.
Under the bridge. So about 30 years ago, they put out a call for artists to do something with this area under the bridge. And a couple of guys made this proposal to build a troll under there, and surprisingly, they won it. That's a real Volkswagen Bug. It was orange originally. The troll just celebrated its 30th birthday on Halloween, where they have a party called Trolloween.
Yeah. Let me move along. Oh, and lunch.
Lunch.
And then it was back to Adobe for the Friday afternoon beer bash, which I'll let John rationalize why they did it. But from my point of view, it was to try to keep people to stay there throughout the week. So that Friday night they would give the beer bash out in the
Courtyard.
and they do the same thing down in San Jose, and it's like free beer and food, and engineers can't say no to that stuff, right, John?
Yes, yes. Yeah, what was nice about it, Adobe
There's
is
John taking a picture of me, taking a picture.
Red Hook Local Brewery.
Yeah.
Brewskis. Free
I wasn't
food.
even,
I mean,
I
it
wasn't
was
even a
like
beer
dinner.
drinker.
Yeah, good food. And entertainment. I don't know what the hell this was.
Yeah, I
but
don't remember what event this was, why they had this stuff out there, but
And this is the Adobe Health Club with the
Yeah.
swimming. And the thing that was notable about Seattle, if you haven't heard this, Adobe, when they moved to San Jose from Mountain View, built this, you know, really tall tower.
I think it was
and then
18
now there are
floors.
3 of them. And what ended up happening is that Adobe built the towers that were literally in the direct flight line for the San Jose airport. So when you're in the office building and you look out the window, if you're like on the 10th floor, which is where the Photoshop team was, you look out, you actually could wave at pilots as they were flying overhead.
They were
I mean,
flying at you.
Flying at you. It was seriously close.
Oh.
And I made a big joke about that, and they were not laughing about it. I said, "You don't worry about getting hit by a plane?" And they all looked at me and said, "Yes."
Imagine being on the
You know,
18th floor.
Yeah. So when I went to Seattle, it was weird because go figure, and this is such a Seattle way of doing things. You know, Adobe Seattle was literally at the end of kind of Lake Washington. Is that correct?
This is Lake Union.
Lake Union. And so that Adobe would get flyovers from seaplanes taking off. And I thought that it was just ironic that
Mhm.
that both Adobes had something to do with planes flying overhead. So that's it.
It's
Cool.
a
Well, thank
beautiful
you.
day in Seattle.
It often is. We just don't tell people about those
Yeah.
days.
Yeah, they promote the bad weather to keep the East Coasters away.
For those the Californians that they wanted to keep away.
Ah. So I really I get a kick out of John because he's self-effacing, humble, and he really is actually a talented photographer. But anybody that could tolerate moderating the Adobe forums, the Photoshop forums, I mean, he's like a Buddhist monk.
For 20 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Those are
And you
great.
did a good job of it. I mean, you kept me and Chris Cox in line, although Chris actually ended up getting fired, but that's another story.
Those are
Yeah.
great pictures, Jeff. And the narration makes it all.
So any other questions from anyone about anything?
Did you draw already who gets the light?
No, I'm gonna someone pick a number from 1 to 20, and then I'll go through the list and see who is the 20, who was that number to sign up. Good question from Jim. When the pandemic is over, what is the first photo I want to make?
Hmm.
I don't know. I just want to go out and hug some people first. Then I'll think about the photo. So Holger, pick a number.
Oh, have Gary do that. She's the only lady here. She should do that.
Jerry, give me a number from 1 to 20.
Okay, we'll go with number 15.
Okay, and afterwards I'll look that up and let someone know they want a interfit badger. Here, let me see if I can. I'll
The
send that
link
to
was
them.
in the chat there, up on the top.
Yeah, I don't think people would see that if they came in later. But other questions?
I think I got everything I
Well,
want.
speaking of after the pandemic,
Mhm.
and you may not really have an answer for this, but these conversations are so interesting and entertaining. John, are
Mhm.
you, after the pandemic, are you hoping to continue in some
Yeah, if I
way?
can
Or
keep getting guests on,
Mhm.
working on a few. Trying to get a couple of darkroom people on who do actually wet darkroom. I've had a few requests for that.
Yeah, I was
so-
thinking of maybe trying to contact John Sexton again at some point too.
Yeah, I know
and-
we tried John in the
Yeah,
summer and he was
he
busy.
was into projects, and then I know the fires got very close.
Do
to
you know
his home.
Roman Lawrence?
Yes.
Okay, I was talking to him this week, so I'm going to see about it. If you happen to talk to him,
Oh, he would
give
be
him some
good.
encouragement.
What
Yeah.
about Dan Burkholder?
I don't know Dan.
I know Dan. He's a
Okay.
funny guy.
And I've also sent an email to JP to see if him and his dad would want to.
I think it'd be great to have the two of them on.
Yeah, so
Mm.
I sent it to him, but that was over Thanksgiving weekend. So maybe I'll send it again, or if you happen to talk to him.
What about Jill Enfield? Do you
Jill?
know Jill?
Not personally, I know of.
Yeah.
Rashard Horowitz.
Yeah, we were talking to Resort. I think you said he was thinking about January or sometime in the new year.
Parish Kohanim.
Mm-hmm.
Harry Benson.
Harry
What
would be fun.
Mueller's just throwing off people who were in the Canon Explorers.
Yes.
No, but Harry would be absolutely perfect for this type of forum. He would be like the Jeff Shewy and Harry would be like bookends with all of us in the middle. Harry's great. Richard is terrific. I've spoken to Richard. I've spoken to Parrish. I did make contact with Oh, come on.
Make up a
Google.
name.
You'll
No,
think of
no.
it.
Oh, Steve Krongard.
Ah, okay.
I did,
So
got it.
taking the headphones off, keep the pressure off your head.
No, no, no. I was going to ask my wife a question, and then before I committed, I realized who it was. It's Jeff. It's an old. I want you to look at me very carefully. I'm your future.
Oh, jeez.
Oh,
John, there was another question here from.
Yeah, I
from
see John Shields asking, what do I most enjoy teaching and why? What are they most in need of learning? Um,
life.
life. Yeah, a lot of photographers, when I teach lighting and portraits, I want to get people out from behind the camera. So many people just kind of talk into the camera and, it's so, but that's not what the question is. What do I enjoy teaching about lighting, how light works, things that I'm frustrated with education. Stephen, are you in twice? Um, Frustrated with the educational system of photography, where I think until like the 1960s or 70s, textbooks really went into depth on things like depth of field, focal length, perspective, and the like. And I think some point along the way, editors got involved and started chopping off half a sentences. So people teaching photography now, younger teachers, seem to be repeating things they've been taught that aren't quite right. I mean, I see people that can take really wonderful pictures and then they try to explain what they did, and I'm going, no, you didn't do that. That's not how it worked. I mean, there's, yeah, they're great photographers, wonderful images. Um, I was at a panel once with the upcoming 35, something like that, and one of the kids is up there and saying, well, I kind of put my flash over here, and when I take the picture, somehow the flash fires with it, and I think it's contributing to the exposure. And I'm like, this is our future. It was my wife was with me at that conference too, and she's looking at me from the side going, this can't be. So I want to get people to understand how things work. I don't want to teach you how to do it, where to place your lights. I'm not making you be me. I want you to be you, but I want you to understand what goes on behind what you're doing. Why do soft boxes come in different sizes? Why do we adjust the size of the distance between the light and the subject and the background? What happens as we move any of these little parameters, and why we do what we do?
I think one of the problems that students have, well, aside from the fact that they're um, spending a lot of money for online learning, which is kind of difficult right now. I taught a class for Patty Rosati at RIT, and the thing that is interesting about students is that I think they have this thing in their mind that this stuff should be easy. And it's hard. It takes hard work.
Mhm.
I mean, it takes thought, it takes effort. Um, when I first got into the business, I had gone to RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology. I've been institutionalized. But the guy that taught my materials and process class was Leslie Strobel, who wrote
Mhm.
View Camera Technique.
Yep, I remember.
And every Friday we had a quiz, and we had a midterm and a final. Literally, I mean, it required us to learn optics, physics, sensitometry, and I think in this day and age, there's an awful lot of fundamental photographic information and knowledge that even the instructors don't have, except
Mhm.
for the old ones. Like you and I have background in film and view camera,
Mhm.
which brings an awful lot of understanding of the process that you just don't get in digital without making an effort. And that's the thing that I'm saying. I guess a lot of young students, they don't know that it's supposed to be hard. It's not supposed to be easy.
Mhm.
Jeff,
Um,
I agree with you completely. I also went to RIT and then a few years later taught there. And I'm now kind of amazed at the low level of technical competency that most photographers have.
I agree. And then you had the
You weren't
rivals
at
from
RIT when I was there, were you, Stephen?
I was a student from 65 to 69, and then
Oh, you're older than me.
I taught in the 71, 72 school year.
I think 74 or 75 is when I went.
If-
But you
if-
remember, I mean, you know, Leslie Strobel, he didn't take shit from anybody. And-
Leslie Strobel made the portrait of me that I used on my first passport.
Cool.
Very cool, especially since I had a fight with the passport office to take it because it wasn't a dead-on photo.
Yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me, my teacher, as I said, in college was Ed Scully, who was a Navy guy. And people used to say, how come you never pat anyone on the back? And someone else in the class would yell out, because he's too tired from kicking them in the ass. You know, but he drilled things into me. One of the things that stuck with me all through life is perspective. You know, find the camera to subject distance that gives you the look you want, and then get the focal length lens that fills the frame appropriately. You know, so many people say, I see all these demonstrations of what a wide angle portrait looks like. No, you show me a portrait that looks like at 12 inches away from the person. You just use the wide angle lens because that's the only way you can fill the frame. You can't use a 100mm lens at 12 inches, you know, or telephoto compression. No, all lenses have the same perspective from the same camera position in the area of the frame that's common to both. You know, blow that wide angle image up and you got the same compression like you saw in the telephoto.
But tell me something, all right? And I'd like to hear from Jeff
Mhm.
also. Doesn't what you're talking about now have to do with design, composition, rather than the technicalities of uh, optics?
In some way, I mean, people blame it on optics. You know, it's the lens is causing this distortion of the, you know, this person's nose looks big because of this lens. No, it's because you got too close to the person.
Well, I understand it, but isn't that all part of design and the graphics of what you're trying to do and learning the
Well,
tools of your trade?
So Nuller, you
Yeah.
understand that photography is a delicate blend of science and art. You're talking about the art part.
Yes.
What I'm saying is that an awful lot of the modern day young photographer don't understand the science part. They haven't learned the optics, the physics, the f-stop, the depth of field, the lighting. You know, how does the lighting affect? We had to do ring around lighting at RIT and literally learn the difference between a spotlight and a soft light, edge light, backlight, front light. You know,
I see people's eyes glaze over when they hear the term color temperature.
yeah.
Right. Right.
I also, oh, go
Yeah,
ahead,
Jerry.
Michael.
But the reality of it is modern day, everybody that's living today, they don't care how you got to where you got. They just want to look at it and say, I like it. I don't like it. Redo it. They don't want to hear about, you know, the inverse square law, about aperture, about depth of field, depth of focus. They don't want to hear about reciprocity. They don't want to hear about rectal, you know, I'm rambling on. They don't want to hear any of that. They just want to look at your image and say, I like it. They don't give me all the scientific gobbledygook that we all know is very important in what we call photo art.
I also think that the knowledge of the history of photography is so valuable, and sort of in that same way, I think a lot of the younger people that are doing digital have only dealt with digital. They don't understand sometimes that there's so much to be learned through the history of photography, and a lot of the technical history of photography is, you know,
But isn't it
fast.
more important to learn about the history of art?
Yeah. Yes, that too.
Because the history of photography was born out of the history of art, paintings.
Right.
Yeah, but I don't think it's important for the viewer to know the technology behind how the image was
Right.
made,
Right.
whether it's a,
That's
whether
exactly
it's a paint,
right.
yeah,
Right.
whether it's a painting or a photograph. But it is important for the artist to know. I think that Rembrandt probably cared a whole lot about what pigments were used in his paints, and that was his tool. Our tool is just dyes
Actually,
and
artists used to get together and argue about pigments and vehicles and mixing and brushes, whether sable was better than whatever.
Mhm.
That's
You
what
know,
needs to be done today.
well, that's what we're doing right now, Mueller.
Well,
Conversation.
right, but it's got to be more global. We have
Take
to
your
re-
headphones off. See if you can.
Then all the
Yeah, let
information I
some
have in my
air in
head
there.
flows out.
The other thing I think is that there is a dividing line of before and after Photoshop. If people got into photography after Photoshop, they don't have the respect for how difficult, well, for example, darkroom is. And the interesting thing is that what I've been told, and I don't know, other people could check this out, but analog photography is on the upswing.
Yeah.
Film
It
and
is.
processing and darkroom work. It was funny because when I was selling off my Hasselblad stuff, the thing that I got the most money for was a 500C, my 500C camera, because that's a perfect camera for a analog photographer. And now twin lens cameras are coming into style, and there's actually talk that Kodak might start making more emulsions again, and actually doing darkroom work. My daughter took photo 101 as an elective in college, and this is like 10 years ago. But the interesting thing is that she said, "Dad, I can't stand the community darkroom. Can you let me use your darkroom downstairs?" And it's like, well, I got all my shit stored in the darkroom because I hadn't used the darkroom in a decade. So I had to clear it out, and then we did. I taught her how. Well, I taught her how to load a roll of film on a Nikkor reel. That never worked out. So I always had to load the reels for her because I could work in the dark. But she would process the film, and she would cut it and put it into sleeves, and then she would do contact prints, and then she would do enlargements. And it was interesting because it brought me back to what got me into photography in the first place, and then realized that, boy, I really like working in Photoshop a lot better than the darkroom.
oh, I agree completely.
Yes.
There's another thing that I totally get where you're coming from, but for me it's different because I started later, and we don't have that in school here. I can't choose photography classes in school, so that never happened for me. And I got to that from somewhere completely different, and now I got digital, and now I got this like a couple of months ago. So for me, this is a totally different experience. I've done digital. I've learned it from YouTube and books and whatnot, and now this analog thing is coming, and I see that I'm very excited to see how that changes my mind and my approach to the whole thing.
Let me understand something.
You can try.
Don't even go there. And Ian, we learned a lot from the analog days. Certainly the darkroom work, the anticipation of processing the film that you took and waiting to get the results, and it was driving me nuts. And people in the advertising industry started saying, look, you're either going to be a photographer or you're going to be a darkroom technician, but don't do both. All right. So I stopped doing darkroom work and just shooting it, and leave all the darkroom work to the people that wanted to be darkroom technicians. And I would tell them what I wanted. almost like, Michelangelo's telling them how to do certain things up on the ceiling. I mean, that's an exaggeration, but we all drive cars, right? When we were younger, we used to take the cars apart, or at least we would know how to change the oil in the car. Unscrew the plug at the bottom, let it drain, and put new oil in the car. Who does that anymore?
Who can do that anymore?
Well, who wants to do it
Who wants
anymore?
to?
And the reality of it is that with my son just bought a Tesla, and he was leaving to go back into the city with his wife and family, and he says, "Oh, you got to back away, Dad, because I'm going to start to move the car." I said, "What are you talking about? You got to turn the car on first." He said, "Dad, the car is on."
On.
I could not hear it.
Yeah.
I said, "Well, how often do you have to change the oil? There is no oil."
So question for,
So do we have to go?
Hmm.
Why do we have to keep going back to reinvent the wheel each time the next generation comes into play? There's a certain amount of information or knowledge that they should have coming into this, and it's not happening. And that I think is the fault of education.
Yeah.
We're constantly having to go back and teach them about optics, about darkroom work, about Elon and what was the other thing? Elon and Mitol. Okay, what is that all about? So, what is he doing? He's pounding on what?
typewriter key.
He has a typewriter?
One of my most
Wait a minute.
concerning
What is a typewriter?
days is I was showing someone work by Jerry Yulesman down in the 50s
Mhm.
and 60s,
Mhm.
and they just shrugged their shoulders because it's pretty easy to do that in Photoshop these
Right.
days.
They
In the
assume it's
50s and
Photoshop.
60s, it was impossible.
16 enlargers or whatever he had.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Can you imagine being Richard Horowitz? And who was the other guy that was the forerunner of what Richard was doing? They would take individual cells of objects and put them in a register, register holder where you punch the
Mhm.
holes in the
Mhm.
film, and it would. I forgot the guy's name, but he was Ben Rose. Ben Rose was the forerunner
Hmm.
of Richard Horowitz, where Ben Rose was doing all this unbelievable magical stuff, and they were making cells and putting the cell on the paper and exposing it to light, and then taking that cell off and putting the next cell on. And if you screwed up in any one of the cells, you wouldn't know that you screwed up until after the
The final image.
the final image was processed.
Yeah.
I mean, people don't understand, and because now Photoshop can do it, Lightroom can do it.
Right. We used to
Right.
have model makers make all these little props for us. And now you just find a stock photo of something.
What are you talking about? I used to do a lot of cigarette advertising,
Mhm.
Archie Reynolds Tobacco, and to this day, I still have. It's got to be at least a foot high, a pack of Winston cigarettes, an actual pack with color perfect paper around it,
Sure.
and cigarettes. That pack cost Lever Cats $1,800 to build, and I made a series of them. Packs closed, packs open, flip top boxes. I must have had 8 or 9 different packs built
Mhm.
for each brand. And RJ Reynolds had a lot of brands that I was photographing. All 8x10, by the way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
John,
Yeah.
Yesterday, I was on a ASMP at Los Angeles, San Diego Zoom. It was kind of open conversation. And I was surprised that most of the people on it were 30,
Mm-hmm.
younger people, 30, 35, maybe even younger than that. A lot of them shooting commercial and up until COVID doing fairly well. And one of the things that they just had a Zoom the day before with, I guess, Art Streiber. And one of the things that got mentioned to me is because there's no longer, in-person meetings and so forth, that there's a loss between generations of a lot of us here and those younger people. And they're actually feeling that that they're actually understanding to some extent that there is a loss of education that they're not getting.
Mm-hmm.
So it just now crosses my mind that perhaps reaching out to them, this one person, ASMPLA, and maybe having them join up with coming into our group might be a very good thing. Because as we've noticed, I think for the most part, we're kind of an older group that has been on all of these Zooms. We don't get many 30-year-olds, 25-year-olds.
Yeah, that's great. Now, Michael's been encouraging me to contact APA and ASMP and the like to get them involved here. I just wasn't sure how to do that.
I'll reach out to this person at
Okay.
ASMPLA.
Do you understand what ASMP stands for?
Well, what it used to stand for, but now it doesn't stand for that.
And why is that, Jeff?
They tried to modernize and rebrand themselves for the modern age.
I mean, from magazine to media?
Because magazines and newspapers are dropping dead left and right.
Yeah.
But they still call themselves ASMP.
Now it's media photographers.
APA is still APA. In fact, they're still using the logo that we developed when I was president of APA National, which is funny because I actually got, what's his name? Randy.
Phillips.
Huh?
Oh, Randy Phillips, you're talking about?
Oh, I can't remember the guy who's president of APA now.
Oh.
But he also does these talks. And not long ago, he had the Obama photographer.
Pete Souza.
Pete Souza.
Yeah, Pete Souza on. And it's filled with a lot. And at the Palm Springs Zoom, thing, they had a get together. And there are a lot of women and minorities involved in APA now. And I asked those guys, I said, so do you guys know the history of APA? And it was like, no, they had no fucking clue that it was a protest group that split off of ASMP New York to start their own, and Hal Davis and all those New York elite photographers.
Langley.
David Langley, yeah, and I remember going to the first APA meeting in New York in Phil Holzman's studio, and I ended up getting into a big argument with Hal Davis, and he says, "Who are you? Who are you? Oh, you're from Chicago. You don't matter." No, I mean, at the time, what they were looking to do is to change business practices to be able to charge itemized billing instead of flat fee billing, which the agencies love, but which is fine. But when you actually go in there and do an estimate, and the client keeps making a lot of changes, and all of a sudden you're using a lot more expenses, all that should be billable. And the big argument was that they wanted to bill for assistance, and agencies refused to allow the New York photographers to bill for assistance. And my big argument was, well, can't you call them something other than assistance? Because in a corporate world, who's gonna be willing to pay for somebody's fucking assistant,
Hmm.
you know? And they do that in film. All the titles, if you look at film crews, all the titles, you know, they have very explicit and unique and creative names for basically what are production assistants, you know. But it was interesting because APA really didn't know what their history was. And it is interesting talking to younger photographers that they actually do enjoy hearing about the olden times, you know, the
Oh.
pre-millennial. Well, you know, even 1990, I mean, Photoshop came out in 1990. And so that was, you know, a precursor to, you know, where we are now. I do find it interesting. It would be interesting to see if you could get John Knoll on. You know, he's down he works in the Presidio at ILM. It'd be cool to get John and Thomas together. Thomas Knoll.
You know, you're
Um,
forgetting one thing, Jeff.
I forget nothing.
No, you forget.
Just takes longer to remember it these days.
Thing.
Yeah.
I got to take my headphones off.
I was there at the very beginning of APA New York. All right. And one of the things that we fought about with the agencies, and I talked about it on this forum, was that when they did a TV commercial, the agencies and the client paid for background paper and all kinds of other stuff that they expected the still photographer. Well, it's your studio, you have it there. Why should we have to pay for it if you already have it? So APA said, you know what? And I've talked about it on this forum. We said, we're going to start a separate company from each of our studios. Like I was Michael Nuller Photography and Inc. And then I started Mike Nuller Props. And then I was able to bill the rolls of background paper that I was using, or all of the other stuff that the video crews were billing for, that the agencies and the clients refused to pay for it.
I think
That's how we started.
let's, you know, I so we don't end up making this another 2-hour conversation. Why don't we come back to just where we were? Okay. So I'll reach out to ASMP LA, and I'm sorry about the background noise.
It's okay. It's one of your airplanes.
I've got the closets being rebuilt.
So, I mean, Jeff, if you want to reach out to Thomas Knoll, John Knoll, and then, you know, tell them about this, that'd be great.
I'll try after the holidays.
Yeah, yeah. And for Jeff and Stephen, what was your rivalry with Brooks?
Oh.
I always think of RIT and Brooks when I was assisting.
Well,
I didn't go to either one.
Yeah, personally, I had no rivalry with Brooks because I was in the photo science department and I wasn't taking pictures. I was in the chem lab, and Brooks had absolutely nothing to compete with us. So
Okay.
it was just another place teaching photography as far as I was concerned.
Yeah, because it seemed like in New York, among the assistants, there were the cliques of the RIT folks and the Brooks folks. Like Avedon only seemed to hire Brooks graduates.
Wasn't
Well,
Stegman?
yeah, I know among my friends in pro photo that there was a rivalry going, and you didn't mention Brooks too often in their presence.
Did you know Stegman?
Steve Stegman?
Steve?
Oh, yeah.
I think so. Not a name that's familiar to me, though.
Wasn't he at Brooks or no? He was at the Art Institute, wasn't he?
Yeah, the LA Art Institute was another one that was
Right.
competed with Brooks.
Right. Well, okay.
Well, there are a lot of places these days teaching photography.
Yeah.
I did graduate work at the Optical Sciences Center at the University of Arizona. And when I was there, that was the closest thing they had to photography.
Mhm.
And they now have a very good photography program and a very good collection, but neither of them existed when I was there.
Yeah,
I'm an old guy.
In terms of commercial, I remember the Brooks were kind of more the PPA type The really good photo students were from Art Center in LA.
Cool. Well, we've gone an hour and a half, and we can keep going if people have more questions. I'm happy to hang out for a while longer.
Now, you
Anyone
know
else?
who would be another good guy that was out of the Art Center would be James Wood. He became the chair of the Art Center in San Francisco, and then he still works there, but he's not the chair anymore. But Jim was an incredible photographer, and probably still is an incredible photographer. So
Yeah, he was also nuts when I knew him. Is he still nuts?
you know, this is like the cashew calling the peanut nuts.
What?
Back again.
I figured he wouldn't get that. It's like,
Oh no, I understand it. It's like that's the best you got. That's what you got.
You're calling wood nuts? Oh God Almighty!
We all are.
And I love you. I love you, Jeff. Oh God.
Well, Holger, we've kind of taken this over from you. Do you
Yeah.
No, I take that
Yeah,
from
sorry,
you.
Holger. Although Holger, do they have lighting equipment in Germany?
I just wanted to accentuate that this is late night here.
Uh-huh.
Otherwise you wouldn't have gotten it.
You
I know.
you have like an
thinking about-
iPhone that you can put a light on your face so I can see it?
Just
That's all we get.
candlelight in the castle for him.
All right.
Oh yeah, that'd be nice.
All right. Oh God. I mean,
Well,
look, Holger, does this give you enough information and enough gusto to like you and John putting something together to like get some satisfaction and respect for still photographers. Bring it back to where it used to be, but in the new age. We're not talking to each other anymore. We're not communicating except via the images that we produce. And that's no good for the industry as a whole. It's not.
Yeah,
I
this
mean,
is,
it goes in cycles. I mean, in the 60s and 70s, no one shared anything. You know, you're going to steal all my trade secrets. Then for a while, everyone was teaching everyone everything they knew, and plus some things they didn't know.
Yeah, but that but that was not exactly true at the upper echelon level. Let's call it at the upper 2% of everybody making pictures. We were talking to each other about how do you do this and how do you do that, and ASMP and APA and all of the professional organizations. That has ended. That needs to be brought back.
Well, in one respect, I'm actually very happy that I live in Dallas, because the PPA chapter in Dallas is the largest single chapter in the United States. In fact, the Dallas chapter is larger than most of the individual state chapters. We have about 250 members, and at a typical meeting, we'll have 100 people show up.
Wow.
And that's every month.
Yeah, but
And
that's
some of them
because
are and some of them are just spectacular photographers. I wish I was one of those.
because you guys give out merit awards. and they
PPA
give out-
nationally.
Yeah, PPA, and you
Mhm.
give out points, and I don't know, because I was a member of PPA,
Mhm.
and I have points to this day. I don't know what that ever got me.
You have to put initials after your name.
Yeah, it's ego food.
Well, okay, and Steve, I want to ask you something, because I've asked this several
Sure.
times. There are lots of people. What's a professional photographer?
I have no idea.
Thank you very much. I agree with you. And I like you. I love you more now than I ever did before. Yeah.
And that should worry you.
No.
In fact, the thing that probably frustrates me the most about the lack of technical knowledge of most of today's photographers is how good the output they do is.
Mm,
Yes, I
That's a
say
wa-
I've seen some really great images.
And
Oh, yeah.
that should be a warning to all of us. It's got to be a warning to all of us. And have you seen what some of the photographers that are just using the new iPhones are producing?
Mhm.
In my wildest imagination, I could not, I couldn't even think about how to do that with a 35 millimeter advanced DSLR.
Hmm. My wife took a picture of me last night sitting by a fire outdoors. That was either a 3 or a 5 second exposure with her iPhone, and it's critically sharp. Yeah,
Well, in fact,
computational.
one of the things I do like about the new mirrorless cameras is the camera companies have now looked to see what the phone companies have been doing in the way of software and have added it to the cameras. I just bought recently a Canon R5, and it's the first time I've ever actually been excited about a camera because it's doing things that no camera I've ever owned before has been able to do.
Like what? Take sharp pictures?
yeah.
No. Like what, Steve?
Take sharp pictures handheld with a 200 millimeter lens at 1/10 of a second. I mean, even when I was 19, doing something at 1/10 of a second was difficult. Well past that there, and holding it at 1/10 of a second without image stabilization for me is impossible.
Now, is the image stabilization built into the lens or the camera now? I'm
Both.
out of the Canon.
With
system.
Canon, both. With the R5,
Oh,
both.
really?
Yes. Also, it has much greater dynamic range of anything I've used before, and one of the things I like about the uh, image stabilization is they're able to go to high dot pitch, and because they're now moving the chip, there's not the kind of shake you had before. Plus, the thing that we forget about with SLRs and DSLRs is you were never actually focusing on the film plane. You were focusing someplace else and hoping that the camera was adjusted so it would actually focus on the film plane. But with the mirrorless cameras, you are focusing on the image plane and everything is sharp. It's the autofocus is way better.
Hmm.
Well, the all of the original point and shoot cameras were mirrorless cameras. They just had the video on the back.
Yeah, but they were
They weren't sharp.
well, no, they were just focus. They were non-focusing. They were set up to have everything from like 6 feet to infinity in focus, and they got as sharp as they ever got, which was not especially sharp.
This was great and very interesting. I'm going to have to leave, but thank you, John and Holger,
Well,
for
thank you.
doing this, because it's always good to know a little bit more about our host. So thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you, Jerry. Be well.
Jerry.
Be
Right.
safe. Be safe.
And I got to go have lunch too. I greatly appreciate it, John and
Yeah,
Holger.
thank you, Jeff. I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, interesting to hear you interview Cornicello. We should have talked. I could have given you some dirt on him before. I can't do it right in front of him.
Next
Why not?
time.
Although, John, you didn't show nudes, did you?
No, because we're on Facebook and what's that other one?
Yeah.
YouTube.
Yeah, but can't you put like little dots on the nipples so that it's the goofiest thing.
I know.
There's a guy that I'm Facebook friends with that posts a lot of nudes, and he does these weird little star shapes on nipples and
Hmm.
black bars in pubic areas. And
Yeah, the shape tool in Photoshop. That's what all I use
Yes.
it for.
Yeah, isn't there a Photoshop action that does that automatically?
Yeah. Oh, funny thing, if you want to hear this.
I hadn't left yet, but I better leave now.
Oh, this is Gary, this is funny. A bunch of the Photoshop people went to Playboy and talked with the people at Playboy, and it turns out that the girls, the product manager, Gaudier, Karen Gaudier. Do you remember Karen, John?
No, I don't.
No. She was a Canadian lady, kind of biggish, and could drink me under the table. She looked at me and said, you know, they said the funniest thing, their favorite Photoshop tool was the twirl filter, and she just didn't understand it. Well, the twirl filter. So apparently gravity changes the orientation of nipples. And Jerry, I swear to God, and you know, Playboy likes to have properly oriented nipples. And so they would use the twirl filter to change the orientation of the nipples. And that was the biggest thing that they thought was cool about Photoshop was the twirl filter.
That was worth waiting for,
That's
Jeff.
Well, on that note, I think I'm going to stop the recordings.
Okay.
So
You can't top that.
Too
anymore.
late.
You should save these for posterity, John.
Well, it is being recorded.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. Yes. We're done on Facebook.